Hello and welcome to stream where, yes, the audio is working. That's good. Hi, my name is Dr. Rachel Tatman. This is Not Centered. What a morning. And my channel, I'm trying to remember what I say. I have it written down. I do not have it written down. Is for anybody who cares about language, technology, and other people. And I would say this is like, you could use this to build language technology. It's part of the pipeline. So broadly defined, we'll be talking about that. You can see the title. You can see that my filter needs to be reset, but I'm just going to ignore it. We are going to be talking about Siuba. Actually, one sec. Let me get the pipey. Andre, hello. Mahmood, hello. Welcome to the stream. I am very scattered this morning. I've had many things happen in a very short period of time. More or less okay. Yes. So I'll pop this over from another tab as well. So this is the docs from it. If you're interested in finding out more information, siuba.org is also sort of a general landing page. I'll pop that in the chat, in the comments. Wow. Hopefully you are all following along and can hear me well. Yes, so the reason I wanted to see this is that it is from Chinese, and I guess if I wanted to, I could try and find the tones and then say them wrong, because that's, I have actually spent many years academically studying Chinese, specifically Mandarin. Yes, that face was me trying to remember if some of my instructors also spoke other related language varieties, but I think I was only ever taught Mandarin, and wow, was I bad at it. Yep, one of those classes that I came very close to failing or failed a number of times, both for writing system reasons and also not great at tones, as it turns out. So Michael, I should say Michael's in the chat. Hi, Michael Chow, is the maintainer and creator of the package. It is like scuba, but without the C, so Siuba. Yes, and if you want to tell me the tones, I can do them wrong, and you can wince, but I will give it a try. Ravi said, so you wanted to finally try it? Yes, I did. So Ravi brought it up last Thursday, I want to say, when I was like, hey, does anyone know of any good packages for doing Tidyverse stuff in Python? 2 Tuesdays ago? Because last Tuesday we did live coding using R. So today we're using Python, which I promised y'all I did do occasionally, and it's occasionally. Yes, so those of you who are not familiar with the Tidyverse, it is a collection of packages in R based on the idea of tidy data. So tidy data is a structure for tabular data where each observation is a separate row and each value is a separate column. So in a tidy data format, for example, if you had, let's say you were collecting acorns from an oak tree, and you had a bunch of acorn weights. An untidy way of storing that data might be you had a row for a specific tree, and then in one of the cells you would have a list of all of the weights. A tidy format of that would be you would have a row for each acorn with the tree that it came from and the weight as separate variables. So it's not generally super sparse. It can be, but that's the general idea of tidy data. And it's, like I said, it's a collection of packages that have been written in R. Other really nice things about it, it tends to borrow a lot of the general terminology and ethos, I guess, of SQL. Something that I forgot the name of there for a hot second. I did not have time to make myself coffee this morning. Well, don't worry, I've had some coffee. I haven't had my custom amount of coffee, so we may be going a little bit slower in the old noggin today. Collection of packages, lots of really nice quality of life features. A big one being, we talked about this during the live coding thing for the Kaggle survey. The thing that is nice is pipes. So pipes are a way of taking the output of a function, using it as the input as the next function. So you have, your sort of data pipeline as a row, as a list of things that you do in order, basically. And I know that there are pipes in Python natively, but they're just not quite as good. And it's something that I like. So trying to do data analysis without it is frustrating for me at this point. So, yeah. Oh, Michael said nail it. Thank you. The pronunciation. Andre says there are no packages built for Debian or Ubuntu. It's a Python package. So I have definitely run Python on Ubuntu before. But yeah, it's not like a operating system thing. It's a Python package. Thursday, Rob V says, is when we talked about it. Hafla, welcome. I don't know the US time zones. Oh, yes. So for me, it is currently Tuesday at 10:10 a.m. Yeah, no R today, Alexi, but we'll be talking about it. Yeah. All right. So let's check out some of the sort of like general guides here, and then we'll check out the read the docs, and then I actually already have a console I already have a Kaggle notebook set up, so I did have to use the magic command. I'll make this bigger. I did have to use the Jupyter magic command to install it. Installed, no problem. So you'll be happy to hear that, Michael. No issues, did not get stuck in dependency hell, and imported correctly. So then we're gonna check it out. And one thing that I really do like about this is that it has a built-in data set, so I did not have to futz around figuring out a data set, which is a very sort of R type of thing. Hey, Hector, good to see you. A very R sort of thing to have a built-in data set for you to work with, because R is, as a language really maintained and worked on by statisticians, many of whom teach stats classes and want to make it easy on themselves to make demonstrations, etc. So, yeah, let's just read together, because that's what this channel is about. Yes. Andre says, so I'd have to use a virtual environment in Python from a modified environment in my Linux distro. Oh, so you're talking about sort of like some of the back-end stuff? Yeah, I saw that Michael is in the chat, so Michael may be able to give you more information. That Michael is the maintainer / creator. And also, I believe currently at RStudio / Posit. For those of you who don't know, RStudio, the company, changed their name to Posit, and they're going to be doing, supporting multiple languages. So Python is one of those languages. Hi, good morning. So, general features. So it's an analysis framework that makes data science faster. I go back and forth between whether I say I'm a lazy person or a person who values efficiency, and I think they're both a little bit true. I like to do things in a fast way, so I like to do things faster, and that's what I like about the Tidyverse. It lets me work with data faster. Also, something that particularly is, I think, helpful for those of you who are working on stuff that you're going to productionize is that you can use the same front end with both Pandas data frame and SQL backend. So if you're familiar with dplyr, which is part of the Tidyverse, it has a sister package called dbplyr, database plyr, which from the coder standpoint looks more or less the same, right? The syntax is the same, but you're working against a database instead of local data files. So that's quite nice. Yeah. I don't know your answers to Andre. Okay, so it looks like Michael's hopped in. I'm not sure if you have to use a virtual environment, but it's probably a good idea. You can install it with Python, mpips install Siuba to use whatever Python is available in a virtual environment. Yes. Also, in general, I just recommend installing Python in a virtual environment. I think most people do. I think that's pretty much the standard, especially because the number of times I've ended up with sort of like a weird edge case where I needed to change versions or subversions has been high. And I know I'm not alone in that. And also, it looks like there's a nice community, which is on... okay, so GitHub looks like to be the place for asking questions. Obviously, we're very fortunate to have the maintainer here with us, or one of the maintainers / the package creator. So nice resource to have at the moment. But if you had other questions, the Siuba GitHub would be a good place to go. So let's look just at some of these basic examples. So we have I'll make this bigger here, a little bit of a code example here. And there are 5 sort of main verbs. A lot of Tidyverse stuff is sort of built around specific verbs, which again, if you're coming from SQL, I think will feel pretty intuitive. So filter, just like filter in SQL, it allows you to select rows, arrange rows, lets you sort things, select columns, lets you select columns, transform data, okay, so this is the same thing as mutate in the Tidyverse, and then summarize is summarize. Okay, so this is going to be, it's not going to be all of the functionality, but it is going to be some of it. So to filter, you pass in the data frame. So in this case, cars here is a built-in from Siuba, and then underscore stands in from, it looks like the name of the data set. So this would be underscore would be the same, I'm guessing underscore dot. And then MPG is the column. And you are getting the ones where you have the maximum for that column. So of all of the rows in this data frame, the only row that has the maximum MPG, which is 33.9, is row 19. So that is what is returned, a single row filtered on this specific value. And of course, I would assume it can return more than one result. This is a little example. And actually, if we pop this into our notebook, it should just work. Except I have imported everything, so I'm gonna have to change the I'm gonna have to change the syntax a little bit, and I don't think I actually want to do that. So I'm gonna delete this cell and use this syntax. So the reason is, if I kept it the way that it was, this would have to be siuba.data.cars, which is a little verbose, and then it would have to be siuba._.mpg, and it would have to be, etc. So just to keep my namespace a little bit less verbose, I'm going to follow the example. All right, and it looks like that works. And if we just want to check out there's no way okay, that works. If we just want to check out what the data set looks like, it is this is one of the canonical example data sets that comes with R. So if you're not familiar with it, that is okay. It is a bunch of fake cars. Maybe they're real cars. I don't actually know the provenance of this data set, which has the cylinders is CYL in the engine. I have a sudden moment of confusion about the difference between the motor and engine, but I don't think it matters that much. Miles per gallon and then horsepower. So it's a three variable data set that you can use to look at interactions between 3 variables. And we successfully filtered it to only return the car that got the most miles per gallon. And it was this one, 19. If we sort of scroll through, we can see that all of the rest of them have fewer miles per gallon. Oh, all right. Robbie says, I prefer Conda. Yeah, Conda's great. You could use Anaconda on Linux as well. Yes, MT cars, exactly, as Robbie points out. Okay, so that's one of the verbs, filter. And then arrange, so just like in SQL, this lets us sort, and I actually don't need to import everything. Huzzah. Okay, fabulous, it's working. So here we are sorting by miles per gallon from least to most. And you may notice, just sort of eyeballing it, that the more cylinders and more horsepower a engine, motor, one of them has, the car bits that make it go, the lower the number of miles per gallon, and the fewer cylinders and the lower the horsepower, the higher the miles per gallon is sort of a general pattern. Tom says Conda's a bit big. Yeah, it can be. It can be. Kahaku says, I remind them of Taylor Swift. Huh. I think that's the first time someone said it to me, but I guess I can see it. Yeah, we're sort of similar coloring, I would say. Yeah. Okay, so arrange again, just like from SQL. Select. So this tilde here must be the negation, because looking at the output here, we've selected everything except for the horsepower column. So let's try that out, right? Let's see if I'm right about that. I feel pretty sure that I'm right. New cell, and instead of horsepower, let's remove the cylinders column. Oh, right. First, let's run the import command. Otherwise, we're not going to have the stuff we need. Okay, yep, that works. Fabulous. That seems pretty straightforward. Transform. So drawing on the Tidyverse mutate syntax here, we're going to take in the data set. We're going to take in and then we're going to create a new column where we're going to take the value in the horsepower column and then subtract the mean of the whole column from the value on that column, right? So this is one of those things that would be pretty verbose to do in base Python, I think. This is one of those things where if I tried to do it in base Python, you can't do nothing with data frames in base Python and base pandas. I would get frustrated and be like, I wish I was doing this in R. But this feels very intuitive to me. And yes, very, it looks like simple syntax. So my question would be sort of like, what are the, I think you can use any function here, and then the function will be applied column-wise, but then this subtraction will be done row-wise, it looks like, which again, something you would need to do all the time in sort of data transformation. It's not quite as useful, but it's close by. Yep. Yeah, so examples, suggestion of trying mini Conda to make it a little bit smaller, but still bigger than virtual environments, Tom says, yeah. So let's try this as well. I do really like the underscore to stand in for the name of the data set. I find that to be pretty... I find that to be pretty elegant. And parsimonious, I think that's what I'm looking for. So I should be able to do something like max as well, yep. And I should also be able to do something like probably mode, perhaps? Yep. Although some of those become not a number. I have no strong intuition for why that should be, because the mode should be numeric. Maybe that's something in the Python. Yeah. Alexi says it's a little bit unpythonic. Yes, that is the point. Right, we are getting the good juice of the Tidyverse package in the smoothie of Python. Okay, and I'll go back to median. Yeah, there we go. I'll go back to something that works so I don't have a broken example on the screen. Michael says, I have to double check mode. I think it returns a strange thing. Yeah, that would be my assumption. I was just sort of coming up with measures of, you know, centrality. Oh yeah, Alexi says the underscore usage seems a little bit unpythonic. Yes, but so the benefit of something like this, right, is that I believe you can also use pipes here. So without this syntax, pipes would be challenging. We'll talk about pipes in just a second. And then finally, we have this summarize. So this allows you to do, you know, summarize. In mutate, we create a new column that does a row-wise thing. Summarize usually does, you know, a column-wise thing, so you get a bunch of information all at once. So here we get horsepowers per cycle, and this is going to be across the entire data set. So summarize cars. Oh, I do have a question, actually. I got something I am interested in. Ooh, and so we're also doing group by. And it looks like it's being grouped by horsepower automatically. Everything works with group by. Pipes. Yes. Okay, we're going to talk about this in just a second. I'm just going through the docs and doing the examples because that's how I like personally to learn things. Nope. Actually, I want this to be code. Can I convert this? Sorry, I made a markdown cell and I actually want a code cell, and I'm wondering if I can just convert it. Looks like I can't. All right. Goodbye. Doop, 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 doop. Okay. So it looks like there is some sort of like secret behind the scenes group buying going on here. No, there wouldn't need to be, right? It's just being performed column wise. So it's, oh, sorry, it's just being performed. Yeah, so we're taking the horsepower row column, we're taking the cycle column, we are dividing for each row, horsepower divided by cycle, horsepower divided by cycle, horsepower divided by cycle. We're getting a new numeric vector, and then we're doing the mean of that. So again, very, very compact syntax. And again, I think, you know, I don't think everything in Python needs this. Kohaku says, what are your thoughts on approaching almost any machine learning problem book to get started in data science? I don't think I've read it, so no thoughts. Okay. Michael says, mode doesn't always return a single value in pandas, so pandas, cars HP minus cars HP mode does very bad things. Noted. So this is the sort of thing that I've talked about this before, right? Pandas is a port of sort of the base R functionality. And R is a language for statistical computing, which means that statisticians spend a lot of time on it. So like one of the things you can do in base R is you can read in any data set and just say plot, and it will give you a plot. It's probably not going to be a very useful plot, but that is like a basic functionality from the get-go, right? Like calculating mode is a basic functionality from the get-go because that is very important in statistics. Much less important, right? Like, you know, if you're doing web dev, you don't need to plot every data set that you load in. And in fact, it would be wild to do that, right? Very, like, it's a different way of looking at the world, and it's a different task that you're trying to do. So But because pandas is just sort of trying to get some of the functionality of base R, sometimes it has those weird edge cases, like mode is weird and not the way that I would expect it to be. So, yeah. Capital C? Kind of like in SymPy? I don't know what you mean by capital C. Tom says pandas can plot. Yeah, of course, because it's a re-implementation of base R. But what I mean is, right, so I don't think this is going to do anything. Yeah, this is a, just like in the R language, if you have the R language installed, that is something that comes with the language. Every installation of R can create plots, right? It is not a basic fundamental, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not like a particle. It's like a small thing that makes up other things. Principle, particle. It's like a unit. Anyway, it's not that in Python, because Python is a general purpose programming language. R is a language for doing statistics, right? I'm just trying to like, so if you are looking at things in a statistical way, R is going to assume that that is your worldview and make things simpler in a way that pandas doesn't always. Nothing against pandas, I'm glad it exists, but sometimes there's these edge cases that I find frustrating. Yeah. Oh, capital C to toggle code versus markdown. Mohammed says R is like MATLAB, fighting words, wowie. I have spent also time in MATLAB, and I would say, MATLAB is not open source, very much so. It's an expensive thing to use. In terms of like underlying fundamental data structures, there are some similarities in that in MATLAB everything is a matrix and in R everything is a vector. I do mean that. So if you have like a string in R, like a text string, it is a vector of length 1. My experiences as a user of both MATLAB and R are very different, and I don't use MATLAB anymore. Let me put it that way. Primitive. Yes, that was exactly what I was looking for. Thank you, Tom. Yeah, plotting is not a primitive in Python. Again, nor should it be. Not everyone needs it. Whereas everyone who is using R needs to make plots at some point. Yeah. Alexei says, some people tend to overuse this plotting feature. I would say that is hard to do when you are doing statistical analysis. But, yep. All right. Oh, so it's escape capital C? I don't think that's doing anything. I could have the syntax slightly wrong, Tom. But also the Kaggle Jupyter notebooks are not quite vanilla Jupyter. At least weren't last time I had cause to know about the internals. Anyway, so big long thing about like why you would want this and why R can be very pleasant to work with if you are trying to do the thing that it is for. All right, so that's the summarize. Somebody mentioned that the sort of like underscore notation feels a little bit unPythonic. Well, we're going to start getting a little bit more unPythonic with pipes. So we talked about pipes a little bit, and basically what a pipe does is it takes the output of the thing above it and uses it as the input to the thing before it, after it. So remember that the syntax for filter was dataset, comma, underscore here standing in for the data set, dot, the column, etc. So if you're sort of like expanding this, you could use, just empty cars instead of this underscore here, and ignoring the group by, right? You would get a different output there. But what the pipe lets you do is it lets you say, okay, we got empty cars. We're going to use that as the input to this group by. Then after we've group byed, we're going to use that output as the input to this filter expression. So this is of course a different data set. So I don't think I need to import this or filter. I believe both of those have already been imported. Yep. So what we have here is different results for each cycle. So here we have cycle cylinders. So here we have the 4 cylinders, the maximum for each of these, the 6 cylinders, the maximum for each of these, and then the 8 cylinders, the maximum for each of these, right? And I know that, hey, there's something sort of similar with base Python, but every time I try to get it to work, I get weird results. So yes, I agree. This is very Tidyverse-y, but that's what I wanted. Yeah. Yeah, capital M toggles to markdown. Nope. Well, anyway. Alexi is screaming, yeah, but this is nice, right? C++ syntax, yeah. Yes, both are slower than Julia. Well, I mean, so the reason that you would use this, right, is that you need to use Python for some reason, but you want the, oh, can I get that to go away? I can. You need to use Python for some reason, right? Like you are, say, working with coworkers who only use Python, but you like the sort of utility and syntax of R for data processing. So if you are in that situation, probably you cannot use Julia, yeah? Maybe you can, but this sort of like using one utility, a utility from one language to another language usually means that you are being, you know, by various circumstances, pushed to use the second language often. Tom says probably a Jupyter. It is some, yeah, oh, no worries. It is, like, it's kind of Jupyter, but the viewer itself is, divergent, I would say. Yeah. Robbie says, can you tell me why C++ has 5 syntax ways to declare a variable? Good news for you about R, there's actually a lot of ways to declare variables in R. Sorry, I'm just gonna quickly show you. This is not gonna work, but this is some R syntax. Never, ever, ever do this one, but these are equivalent. Yeah, R has some particularly funky ways of being able to declare variables that come from the legacy of S as a language. Yep. If any of you ever write R code and I see this in it, and I am code reviewing it, I will politely suggest you stop doing that. Anyway, so that is the general idea, and it's why this syntax is being used here. And the sort of parallel in the tidyverse in R is that you would just, you know, refer to the various columns by their name. You wouldn't do the underscore syntax, but I get why it's there. And it doesn't particularly bother me. And honestly, this does look more Pythonic than just referring to the names. So, and then the big benefit of that is, right, you have the same data pipeline. And let's say you've got, you know, 18 different data frames you've collected from various times, or like various slices or whatever. Well, all you need to do is run this exact same, you know, series of operations on different inputs, and as long as they have the same column names, you don't need to change anything. So in terms of being able to have a reusable data pipeline that you're not constantly having to rename things in, and as someone who struggles to look at text and accurately see what it says sometimes, I appreciate that. That's the benefit. That, and then you can, you know, so right now we're working on you know, a local data frame. If I wanted to connect this to one of the backends that this supports, like a SQLite backend, say, all I would need to change is, you know, this, right? I would just need to say, hey, now I want you to do that same operation, but instead of doing it on my local data set, I want you to do it on the SQLite data set. So if we go back through here, you should be able to see, you know, precisely the same syntax, precisely the same syntax, and then again, precisely the same syntax. So you can work on create a pipeline on a smaller version of a data set and then use it on larger data sets and databases without having to change anything. So that's the reason why you would do this in this way. Yeah. Yes. All right. It overloads this. Okay, so this may also have a existing Python syntax for some IO libraries. Okay, that's good to know. There are, I wonder, let's check out the docs, because there may actually be some options for how you write the pipes in Siuba, because there definitely is in base R. So let's check out the docs. Are they linked here? There we go. So this is the read the docs page, and I'll post this link as well in case anybody wants to check it out. There you go. And all right, so basic use, you've got these lazy expressions, or what these underscores are called. So this underscore here replaces, the output of the group by cycle, which takes the input of the thing that's above it. Pipes. Okay, so there may only actually be one type of syntax for that piping. C++ uses it for IO. Some Python libraries might, I don't know. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so if it's overloading the syntax, then that might be an issue for utility. Yeah, so the way that you, could kind of do a similar thing is, you could do lambda functions. I will say, I often find lambda functions hard to, linguistic sideline here. So in psycholinguistics, you can think of a line of code like a sentence, right, in a longer document. And in psycholinguistics, we know that the more syntactic structure there is, right, the more like embedding, the more like clauses and subclauses there are in a sentence, even if the length of the sentence is the same, right, it's the same number of words, the more challenging it is to process and understand, right? And I don't actually, that's a good question. I don't actually know of anyone who has worked on the psycholinguistics of humans processing computer code. Obviously, there's a lot of work on sort of like generating the ASTs from different lines of code and, efficiencies there, but I don't know about like the psycholinguistic human processing. But my strong intuition is that the more embedded, syntax and structures you have in a line of code, the more challenging it is to parse grok, if you will, what's actually going on in that line of code. And again, that's my experience as a person who reads code. Based on the sort of a psycholinguistic literature of processing of human language, I would, be shocked to find out that it is not the same. And the thing about lambda expressions is that they create additional embedded structure. And I get it. Like, I understand why folks use them, and I think that they can, in some places, be, more parsimonious and, can be easier to write. But as someone who is reading code and trying to understand what it's doing, I tend to find them a little bit derailing and harder. So that just my preference is that if I can avoid them, I tend to. And you can see that that is the case because, lambda expressions in R are used with, apply in particular, which is a base R verb function that takes a function and applies it to every row or every column, depending on how you do it in your data space, which is replaced in the Tidyverse oeuvre, worldview, gestalt, body of work. I'm having such lexical access problems today. Way of doing things. That's probably a better word that I'm looking for. Anyway, is replaced with things like mutate and really mutate. So that instead of, having these embedded expressions, you have, a new line with a new expression on it. And I, again, just as a person who sometimes struggles with reading and comprehension, I find that easier on the old brain. So anyway. Robbie says, under the Tidyverse you'll find lots of lambdas. Yes, but it is rarer that they derail the sort of they create additional embedding in the syntactic structure of the thing that I'm reading, right? So if you think about this from a prosody standpoint, so if I was reading this, I'm going to do something here that is a little bit weird and I apologize, but if I was sort of using prosody to sort of express the structure here, I might do something like right. So this is is pretty straightforward, but you have a little bit of repetition. Here it would be something like right. So you have that sort of descending prosody to be embedding. And here you have right. So there's less repetition, there's less sort of structure, there's less I know they're there, it's just not written out in a way that is hard to parse for me, again, as somebody who can struggle with reading. Yeah, no, that's my point, exactly, Tom. It's doing the exact same thing, but the syntax is more easily readable with my human eyes. I don't have to write it out by myself with my little fingers. Yes, is what I'm trying to say, right? This is 100% a readability thing. I'm not saying anything. Fundamentally, it is doing the same thing. They are equivalent. They are, homomorphic from a, what they're doing standpoint, but from a human being reading and writing standpoint, one of them is easier, and it is the one with less stuff in it. Mohammed says the syntax looks slimmer. Yeah, but I will say, it's not just a number of characters, right? Great example here would be something like Perl, right? Very parsimonious in terms of, right, the syntax. You don't have to write a lot of characters, but a lot of embedded structure in most Perl. So it's very slow and nitpicky to sort of untangle, and it's just harder to do, again, for me. Graki says, Perl, yeah. Aw. I do have a soft spot in my heart for Perl. Every time I have to use it, I cry, though. And I'll tell you right now, I know of at least one professor who teaches Intro to NLP with Perl still, so it is certainly not gone. Anyway, but that was my point, right? Yeah, it just looks different. Fundamentally, it's doing the same thing, but the looking different is different enough and helpful enough for me that it is an appreciable difference. Which is the other reason I haven't ever really gotten sort of into the DB table stuff too much. Not because it's, bad, it's just not as helpful for me. Andre says, $_ the default variable in Python, and Perl absent in Python. Yes. Okay, so just another example of the syntax. And then we have also the, again, familiar to me, these verbs for mutate, filter, and summarize. And I think that's something that we tend to underestimate. Something I commonly see people underestimate is the value of having a tool that uses phrasing that lines up with your expectations based on your experience of other programming, etc. Which is one of the reasons that I like the Tidyverse, is that it's it feels tastes just like SQL, right? Very similar. The words are the same and the things that they do are the same. For me as a user of the programming language, obviously different under the hood, but that's a great question. Gohaku says, is there something like Siuba for R? There sure is, friend, and it is known as the Tidyverse. In fact, this is a re-implementation of the Tidyverse in Python. Or I should, parts of the Tidyverse. The Tidyverse is a collection of packages that share sort of an ethos. That's the word I was looking for earlier, ethos, about how data should be organized and interacted with. So yes, this is a partial reimplementation of some of the core functionality of the Tidyverse, specifically dplyr. Yes, and I'll pop that in the chat for you as well. Tom says it's quite fun because the lazy, I think is that what it was called? The lazy expression underscore object sort of turns a statement into a function. You can get this with the any function in Postgres. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I haven't used Postgres that much, so keep that in mind. But yes, it does become, obviously it's not purely functional programming, but it is more functional than object oriented, I would definitely say. So, yeah. Tom says, Tidyverse makes me think of Tinyverse. Esprit de corps. Yeah. Yeah, that's also, although I would say that suggests perhaps an air of exclusion and exclusivity in the community that I have not especially experienced. I found the Tidyverse folks to be, in general, very sweet. Big fans of them as people, and I was, I was made to feel very included and welcome when I started to join a larger programming language community. And it was not the first time that I had attempted to do that, but the first time where I didn't have an extremely negative experience very soon after trying to integrate with the community. And it was really nice. I enjoyed it. So cheers to the R folks and the Tidyverse folks. Quarky says, is the pipe overloading the bit shift operator to build the pipeline? No idea. Matthias says, the factor lump is really useful when using pandas since pandas doesn't implement it. Oh, what is this? What is this? I want to learn more about this. Okay, let's see. So would that be in key features? Oh, so this is a helpful little, comparison. Also, dplython, I believe someone mentioned recently, is no longer under active development. I would double check that. I'm not sure that that is actually the case. But there are other options if you really like the dplyr syntax. Raku says, now I'm switching to R from Python. I mean, if you are only doing R things, then I think R makes sense. If you're trying to also do Python things, then you're probably going to need both. Do I know Jesse Mostovac and Meg Risdal? Very well. Meg was actually, was she? Yeah, I think Meg was my first manager after I went to industry after grad school. So yes, I know them. I know them both quite well. Lovely folks. All right. So someone was saying, what were we looking at? The FCT, the factor lump. Python, it belongs to the forcats package of Tidyverse. So the forcats package does forecasting. I don't know that I've seen that, or that expression, but I could be wrong. I don't know that I've seen functionality in the documentation that is similar to that, but I could be wrong. It is fabulous if you're doing time series stuff. Really, really good. Type syntax, lazy expressions, no reset index, no Notice how Siuba can mutate a data frame and return a data frame. It doesn't stick columns into the index. This means you don't need to call reset index all the time. Thank you. One of the things that is very upsetting. It's not that upsetting. It's just annoying, you know? After grouped aggregation, yes, this has been something that I, again, have really struggled with because I expect it to just work like this. And it doesn't, and I have to like futz with the index manually. Doesn't matter whether the data is grouped or not. Uses the ungrouped mean, uses the grouped mean. Oh, okay, so what they're just saying here is that it doesn't matter whether or not you do your grouping. It's always going to be the same, question mark? Yeah. For categorical data. Okay. Oh, I see the factor stuff. Yeah. In pandas, you have to change your code for group data, which, I mean, this, you know, makes sense in Python world, but if you're constantly grouping and ungrouping data to do various, you know, operations on it, frustrating. Also, just look at the difference. Okay, I know you cannot put yourselves in my brain, but the difference between this, which is very easy for me to read and understand, and this, which is much slower, is appreciable. I notice a difference there in terms of like, for cats is the same like factor. Oh, you know what? You are absolutely right. I am not thinking of, I'm thinking of something else. I'm thinking of a different package. Nope, now I've got to look it up. Too late. Too late. What is the, I'm trying to think of the time series package. Tibble time, that's not it. Oh, is it just forecast? No, I don't think it's it. Is it tidy date maybe? Well, I don't remember. But thank you, Abby. Anyway, so other stuff. Forecast. It is forecast. Okay. I feel like there's something else that I've used for tidying, like inconsistent date entry previously, and is that the forecast package? I don't know. It's been a while. It's been a couple of years, actually. Yee. Time continues to move onwards. That is quite the difference. So I'm just looking at the syntax here. No, shoo. Go away. Does that work? That works. And the syntax here, where this is, again, just more verbose. Maybe fable or model time? Now I'm gonna have to, if I do not chase down this thread, it's just gonna bother me. Tidy dates in, it has a funny name. Lubridate, that's it. Thank you, Ravi. That's the package I was thinking of. Lubridate, like lubricate, like you would lubricate, I don't know, with WD-40, you know, a hinge or something, but it's a D, so it's lubridate. That is exactly what I was looking for. Thanks, Ravi. Okay, so if you are using dplython, it looks like it's going to be significantly slower. And then, of course, you can just do SQL, which is nice. We talked about ASTs. I don't think I actually said what that stands for, but abstract syntax trees. It's made possible because Siuba represents lazy expressions with abstract syntax trees. See, this is what I mean, right? Like, I don't want to have to look at it or think about it. I just want it to work. And I just want to be able to say things in few words and have them work the way that I want them to work, right? Yeah, so this is deep in the weeds. But of like computer science stuff, but we have a tree structure. Sorry, that that little head tilt is that usually in linguistics land, we represent tree structures as like almost like a root structure where the parent node is at the top and then the child nodes come out like a family tree. Actually, I don't think that is always the case. Sometimes we do it that way. Sometimes we do it the other way, where you draw up like that. Yeah. Anyway, usually they're written that way. But I think that this makes sense. I'm just, I don't know. I don't need to do it. It just helps me to think about it. Yeah, so all of the nice being able to write things the way that you want is just being handled behind the back with parsing. Nested data. Okay. Okay, so nested data is untidy. So this provides a nice way to unnest that data, which is really nice using this unnest command. Tom says, linguist trees are weird. The parents are words. I feel like morphologically parsing trees go the other way, where the children are morphemes and the parent is the root. But yeah. Obviously, it starts from the root, opposite of a tree. Let me just pull up a syntax tree for y'all. Am I getting a little bit derailed? Maybe a tiny bit. Okay, so this is from, this I would say is very much not the, state of the art anymore. This is just from the XBAR Wikipedia article. XBAR is a sort of like a little bit outdated syntactic. Oh, I don't know if you heard that. That was my back. A little bit outdated syntactic formalism. But basically so the leaves are children, and then the root is sort of like the parent node is the phrase structure, and then all of the sort of like intermediate nodes are they're in your brain is the argument, but not actually in the surface text. But one sec. I feel like morphology trees do go the other way, and I'm just going to double check that because now I've got a bug in my ear. Morphology, biology, morph shape, right? So morphology is the study of word shapes, or, animal shapes, bough plans, etc. Oh, no, yeah, it's the same way. So I'm still on Wikipedia. Yeah, so there's a morphological tree where you can see the parsing of the word. So sort of a niche topic in English linguistics because it's not that important for most NLP stuff in English. In languages like German or a lot of indigenous languages of North America, extremely important. They tend to have much richer morphology than we do in English. Anyway, and nesting, so that's nice. Very nice thing that I imagine I will have to do at some point in the future. And then programming guide. If you want to get started with analysis, see the analysis guide. This guide gives an overview of how to implement and extend most parts of Siuba. It also discusses the rationale behind the architecture, which may be of interest to y'all, but I am going to check out the data analysis guide to see if there's other things that are particularly useful. Strings! Right away. Okay, coming soon. Sorry, as someone who works mainly with text data, I was like, let me see about that. Okay, coming soon. Gather and spread. So those are making the data wide. long and wide respectively. Joining tables, again, from that SQL syntax, as you'd expect. Nesting and unnesting. Custom functions. Custom functions are created using symbolic dispatch. Okay. That makes sense because there's some parsing going on under the table. So under the table, it makes it sound like behind the scenes is what I was looking for. Under the table means like avoiding government oversight, which is not what's going on here. Yeah. Big errors, referring to a column that doesn't exist, a panda series method raising an error. Yep. Python syntax errors, and then any of the above in a pipe. Note that stack traces are shown here shorter than normal to help make them clearer. This is something Siuba does for SQL by default and will be implemented for pandas in the future. Oh, that is nice. So you only get the most relevant parts of the stack trace. You don't get the whole thing. So you don't have to scroll a whole bunch, which is very nice. Oh, I love this. So like if someone was searching for, you know, Siuba and then this particular attribute error, they would get this result, hopefully, on what to change, which I really like. Series method error, got a bad keyword. Okay, so if that happens, okay, so it looks like sometimes you do actually need to replace it with the actual data name, which is a little bit of a bummer, but it sounds like that's because of stuff happening on the panda side. Mean got an unexpected keyword. Okay. And then obviously Python syntax errors, which I make a lot of, like unexpected indents, etc. Okay, gotcha. So one thing that I did notice but didn't actually say is that the piped expressions were enclosed in parentheses. So this is, you know, perfectly fine syntax in R. Kind of fine syntax in R. But in Python, you'd need to either use an backslash or do the whole thing in parentheses, which is good to know. If you get an error in the pipe, it's helpful to comment out parts of the pipe. I really like these sort of like troubleshooting debugging suggestions. I think that's really super user-friendly to try and figure out where the specific thing is. All right, fabulous. Ooh, and then dates and times. Okay, coming soon, coming soon. Various things for moving data around and recombining it in new ways. Joining tables. Oh, so this is the documentation specifically for the join in here. Gotcha. Okay, great. So we have the this again is the same as the Tidyverse syntax, which again some of you may be familiar with from SQL, which, you know, inner join, left join, and full join. Notes on piping. Currently, when you use a join in a pipe, you need to pass underscore as the first argument. This is because it requires 2 data frames. For single data frame verbs, it is optional. Okay, various types of join, semi and anti-join. And it looks like there's no right join implemented, but that's okay because you can just switch the order of the arguments and suddenly it becomes a left join that is the same as the right join if they were in the other option, other order. So under the hood, yeah, that's exactly what I meant. Oh, there's a full guide up now. Oh, on the strings. Okay, let me go back to strings. Actually, let me try reloading really quick. So Michael mentioned to me on Twitter this morning that he actually like just updated a bunch of the docs and stuff. So, which thank you, by the way. I'm really enjoying this documentation so far. I think you've done a great job. Tom says the pipe is sort of behaving like a period, e.g. df.filter.apply. This is a hacky way to add your own dot operator effectively. Kind of. I think the big benefit for me is that without a bunch of additional syntax, I can get different things on different lines. And I have also run into weird edge cases using the dot syntax to chain things that are always very frustrating for me because it doesn't work the way that I expect coming from a pipe background. Yeah. Ali Bay says, never heard of Siuba. Me neither before, I think last week, a couple weeks ago, Robbie told us about it. And yeah, we've been playing around with it and so far I'm a fan, I gotta say. It makes me it makes me dread working with pandas less, which sounds very rude, but again, I'm used to this, rich ecosystem of very, delightful, user-centric packages from the Tidyverse. So, all right. Yeah. And then I think some folks had some questions about the programming guide, particularly the pipe syntax. So let's actually check out the pipe syntax, I think. that might be helpful. So Siuba is a single dispatch. This allows people to define new functions that are easy to package and import, as well as handle both pandas data frame and SQL alchemy table. Oh yeah, that's the other thing, is that yes, we're doing things that work with pandas, but you can also just plug this into a different backend, which is really nice. One challenge was using functions rather than methods. It's finding a way to combine them so they can be read from left to right or top to bottom. In pandas, this is done using method chaining. This is exactly what Tom was talking about. You use those dots, which you can do in you can do something similar in Siuba without the pipes, but the issue is that the head is run last in the method chain, but is the outermost function call. We have to read the calls inside out, and it's hard to quickly spot the beginning, right? So this is the very first thing that happens, and the end. This has been described as the Dagwood sandwich problem. So Dagwood is a... that's quite the title. Dagwood is a I don't think it's running anymore, but it was a US newspaper comic set in like an army training camp, I vaguely remember. Anyway, he's well known for having enormous sandwiches that have like 80 things on them. If you're familiar with sort of the sandwich mythology from Scooby-Doo, where they had like these huge, hoagie sandwiches, submarine sandwiches, very similar, cartoonishly large and complex sandwiches. And thick bread smell. So smell here, I'm assuming referring to code smell. Like this is a persistent past pattern of usage that some people don't like, I think is an okay way of describing code smell. We're nesting spreads apart the beginning and end of the bread in a proverbial sandwich. This harms readability and reuse. The solution is to reference the intervals by name or variable instead of to physically nest them. So here we have a bunch of things that are happening like so, and you have to, read those things from the inside out, which is not how... There is no writing system that works like that. I feel very confident about saying that. There's no human language writing system that works like that, where you read from the inside out. There are writing systems that can be written as spirals, but that is not the same thing. Yeah, so the fix here is that instead of having like a bunch of nested things that are kind of hard to read, you've pulled them apart, so you do the thing that happens first shows up first in your code, which is easier to read. And like I was talking about, sort of, again, from the psycholinguistics of reading and holding, in your mind a bunch of structures and parsing them out, a bunch of embedded structures is much more difficult than a bunch of structures happening in order. So here you have the, the pipe version of that syntax, which, still has lambda operation here, which is, you could get rid of using the lazy expression, I think. Tom says German ? So I don't know, as German is especially syntactically complex. Written inside out. No, so what I mean here is that when I said that there aren't writing systems that have this quality, there aren't writing systems where you read something and then you read something ahead of and behind it, and then you read something else ahead of and behind it, right? That's just a very inefficient way to read information. So most writing systems, you start in a place and you move, right or left or down, or for to my knowledge, only one now extinct Mongolian writing system, bottom to top, and that came from a writing system that was, you know, left to right being rotated 90 degrees. So not a super common way of writing the information. Yeah. And then some German that I cannot read. One coffee to drink. I got that last bit there, but I don't know the rest. Which I'm not saying. I'm not saying that linguistic structures aren't nested. That's very much a thing that happens. What I'm saying is that in writing systems, you don't represent that in a nested structure. Slightly different. Yes. And then, okay, grouping verbs and operations. Okay, just some examples of sort of how that works. And then pipeable classes. So under the hood, function calls like below are turned into a pipeable object. There are two implicit cases that create a pipeline. The function receives no positional arguments, and the function's first positional argument is not a registered data source like data frame or SQL database. Alternatively, you can explicitly create a pipe by passing an instance of Siuba's symbolic class. This is shown in the code below. In this case, you're taking advantage of Siuba's lazy expressions and using underscores as a placeholder for data. Since underscore is an example of symbolic class, this is just a single dispatch with a small twist. The code below shows all the classes mutate can dispatch on. The path from symbolic to pipeable. Okay. So, what can you do pipeable stuff to? Right? So, this whole thing here can be created to be an output that can be piped into the next thing, I believe is what this is talking about. So if the function does not have any positional arguments, it's created as a pipeable thing. Or if it does not have a registered data source like a data frame or SQL database, you can explicitly create a pipe by passing an instance of Siuba's symbolic class. Because those things, sorry, I'm just thinking about this. MB Timothy says, what human languages am I able to speak? My English is pretty good. My probably second best spoken language is French, but I have not had much call to practice that recently. And probably my strongest second language is actually American Sign Language, which is obviously not spoken, but also one that I haven't used a whole bunch again recently. So those are my top three. I've also studied Mandarin to disastrous effect, like I mentioned earlier in the stream today. Did not have a whole lot of success. And I've spent like a very small amount of time trying to learn Hindi, very small amount of time trying to learn Swedish. I'm not great at learning languages. And in part that's because I don't really live much of my day-to-day life in a multilingual setting. So I don't have a lot of room or call to practice stuff. Oh, I also I have a friend who is a very passionate Esperantist, so I have also for their benefit studied a little bit of Esperanto, which is an invented language for those of you who are unaware. But yes, sign language grammar is very rich and complex, and of course, you know, each signed language has its own grammar. But one of the things that I was really interested in grad school, and I'm still interested in, I'm just not writing papers on it anymore, are the you know, I hesitate to call them units, but what can humans use to encode linguistic meaning, right? So obviously we can use the speech signal, we can use various qualities of the speech signal, its sonorance, its, envelope, the fundamental frequency in the case of things like tonal languages, etc. Various types of articulation. We can also use the body grammatically, right? So for linguistic processes, we can use, reference to objects in space, which is more common in sign languages than in spoken languages. Again, perhaps obviously. We can use, there can definitely be symbols that begin to take on linguistic qualities. So one of the things I was really interested in studying is emoji, although as a research community, linguists have kind of come down on the side of, emoji being more gestural in nature than linguistic. They don't tend to interact with a lot of linguistic processes. One thing that I was particularly interested in, that, again, I'm not researching anymore, but there have been some pretty good papers on it recently by deaf linguists, is how pointing can become grammatical. So a point in American Sign Language, for example, can be used to create, we can use it like a pronoun, like you would in a spoken language, in a grammatical way that interacts with the morphology of the signed utterance, gesturance, I guess. And at what point does a point become grammatical, and what qualities make it grammatical? Were one of my interesting things. Tom says primitives definitionally non-decomposable. I even hesitate to do that, right? Because a point is definitely decomposable. You have multiple fingers that you can use. You can do it in different ways. Or even if we're talking about language sounds, right? Like, I think most people would agree that ah is a language sound. However, it has multiple features that you can decompose it into, right? Even, acoustically, it has multiple formants. You can pick those formants apart. It has, qualities of height and forwardness. It has qualities of roundingness in that it is not rounded, whereas something like aw would be. So yes, there is no atom of language. I am not willing to commit to that, but there may be consistent. There's not even really a lot of consistent. Anyway. I don't want to get too deep into it, but basically there is very little that is invariant in human language, and people tend to assume that there is a lot that is invariant in human language, and it's just wrong. Anyway, sorry. Which I get how you could get there, because I think to some degree, like, psychologically, like in the psycholinguistics, we are capable of grouping things together and saying that these things are the same. When they are similar along perceptual lines, but we are creating the structure around them. Anyway, yes. If you're really talking about non-decomposable things, I mean, Fourier transform, there are, things like a fundamental frequency. There are sine waves, and sine waves are sort of non-decompositional. And that's probably the best you're going to get. Or maybe like single neuron firings. Again, possibly something like motor programs. I mean, sort of an open question whether or not motor programs are, oh, sorry, I'm still here. Sort of an open question about whether or not motor programs are still, are actually decompositional. And I don't want to have opinions on that because I am insufficiently knowledgeable. I will say, I hesitate to even say that there are words. All right, so let's wrap up. I got sidetracked a lot today. My apologies. Like I said, just a lot going on for me. Let's just go through and look at all the things we talked about today. And I'm going to actually tidy this up a little bit. I'll publish this so people can check it out if you are interested. Tom says, neurophenomenology of linguistics, yes. Not my key area of specialization. Okay, and yes, I think this we also only imported once. So let's do that and see if this works. Pretty sure it should. Oh, and group by. That works. Okay, so it looks like it's working. What have we worked with today? Oh, we don't have any examples with pipes, do we? Will this work? It will, okay. But it will not work if we do this. We should get a white space error here. We do indeed, fabulous. Just to double check something and make sure I got the error that I thought I was gonna get. So let's quickly review what we talked about today. Oh, actually, you know what? Let me also, I wanted that at the top. Can I add a cell here? Can I? What is it? Yeah? All right, and then I think I can edit, move up, fabulous. Is this Markdown? No, that's a code cell. There we go, all right. So I just wanna make sure that I have links to the documentation, everything at the top. A quick, a short notebook looking at the core functionality of Siuba. And then I will pop in the docs. Information, more info. I think it should render as a link. It does, fabulous. I think I may need to do this though. And then it was, I believe, siuba.org? .orf. Nope, org, there we go. Just make sure I have all of the relevant information. That looks wrong. Function. Core verbs, there we go. All right, and I'll save this so folks can check it out if they would like. So we installed it, which I did off camera, and then we played around with the lazy thing. I forget what it's called. We played around with being lazy, which was great. This underscore, filter, which selects rows, arrange, which reorders rows, select, which selects columns, mutate, which creates a column with mutated, changed variables, summarize, which summarizes the information about the data set in a single value or set of values, and then group by, which it's just like SQL. It's the same as SQL. And we have an example of arranging. So here we arrange the cars, sub data set based on the miles per gallon thing. And actually, if I just do this, well, yeah, okay. So we can use the minus signs to reverse the order there. Here we selected everything except for the cycles column. Here we, actually, one sec. Huh? All right. Fine. Actually, I want to split this cell. Nope. Actually, that's fine. I can just do this. Grumble, 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 grumble. I just wanted it to work. That's okay. No. How do I get the head? Okay. Hold, please. Pandas get the head. Pandas head of data frame. Oh, should I actually do this? Will that work? Hey, nice, fabulous. Sorry, it just makes me very happy to be able to do this simply in this, right? Because that's obviously like these are all, you know, longer expressions. But guess what? I can do the thing that I like to do in R. Here in Python, look at that. Isn't that nice? Love it. Makes me so happy. I think we have all of these correctly done. Yeah, thank you. Oh, it's a method, not a function. Or Siuba has a head function. Oh, let's see. You know, I'm gonna obviously use that then. One sec, let me double check that I got all that. Yep, sure did. Ah, it's gonna be even more, sorry, there's enough of a delay between me and the chat that if you are giving me a command, it's gonna take a little bit. Oh, haha. Ah, delightful. Perfect. Sorry, this makes me really happy. I don't even need to load in pandas. Ha ha ha. Obviously, I don't need to do the head of this because it's just one thing. Yes. Michael says it's basically just the pandas head method, but it also works with SQL. That's fantastic. I love that. Fabulous. Emmy says, I love the expression when I get it to work. Me too. I'm happy. Yes. All right. Oh, use press tab to see all the functions. Yeah. I just wanted to check the syntax of the thing to do. Oh, okay, so this is a little bit of trivia here. So you can see that here we are getting the top 5. In R, head will give you the top 6. So a little bit of a change there, but I believe that it's 5 in pandas. Let me actually... which re-implements some of the nice quality of life features from the R Tidyverse in Python in a more performant way than, what was it, dplython? You can also use it with both a SQL back end and pandas data frame with the same syntax, which is nice. All right. Lexi says, how to make it work with other libraries? How do you make other libraries work together? So I think the main thing is if you are interested in using other libraries functions as part of the pipe, you'd have to do, where's the this programming guide would go into it more, but you may have to do some stuff with how you represent those. Did I misspell it? Sure did. Thank you. I don't know if I've actually said it on this stream, but I think I've sort of hinted at it. I am dyslexic. Typo master. Yes, absolutely. So one of the videos I did on my favorite language technologies, way up there was spell check, without which I would not have graduated high school, and that is not a joke. Yeah. Yeah, and it should work with most stuff. Fabulous. Yeah, I am very delighted. Shed is delighted. Great time. Thank you, Mr. Role Player. Love to have a positive experience. Yeah, so I will rerun this. Yep, and then I will make it public, and I'll pop the link in chat if you're interested. I mean, it's the examples from the documentation. You also can copy and paste from the documentation. But if you're particularly interested in, if you're particularly interested in, there you go. That's a link to my notebook. Oh, and I'll get that link. So homepage guide. Yeah, I have links turned off because unfortunately, I've had some problems with spam in the past. Siuba.org. Turns out that SUIVA is different and not the same thing. All right, so you're saying no. Yes, I see how that could be. Homepage guide, backend examples. No, I spelled multiple things wrong. That's okay. Guide, and then lazy expressions, using with plot9, basic use maybe? Does Siuba implicitly import pandas? I don't know. Yeah, I'll pop the guide into chat as well. I don't see what you were talking about, Michael, so my apologies. Yeah, Alexi says Halloween special stream. I hadn't planned on one. Our next stream is going to be on, so we have one on the 27th, and then we have one on November 1st, which is actually All Souls Day, the day after Halloween. But I don't have any, anything special planned. I don't know. Maybe I'll wear a costume. We'll see. I don't have a whole lot of real estate to work with for an intriguing costume, but perhaps I can come up with one. So overall, I would say I would describe my developer experience as pretty delightful. Again, coming from a strong Tidyverse background, worked the way I wanted it to work. I even had this built-in head function, which love it. Very good. I expect things to be functions, particularly when doing this sort of data analysis where you do X and then Y and then Z and then A and then B and then C, etc. Things in order. So it's not, again, it's not purely functional programming, but it's not functional programming. Yeah. Okay, and so Michael's clarifying, it does implicitly import pandas at the moment, but it may not in the future. So for those of you who are interested in using the library, keep that in mind. Yeah. All right, so that's all I had for y'all today. You can check out the notebook if you're interested. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be using this next time I have to do something with pandas. We're definitely going to make my life easier. So thank you very much, Michael, for your work on this. I hope, I don't know. I have gained a lot of joy and, utility and ease in my life as the result of open source developers. And I want to make sure I'm always, I want to acknowledge that, right? So thank you. And thanks to the Pandas crew. I know my frustration with Pandas are not because it is a bad library, but because it is similar to something that I'm very familiar with, but doesn't have all of my, nice features that I want. I guess it's like if when you're traveling, you're used to staying in a fancy hotel and then you stay in a Motel 6 and you're like, oh. And you can do the same stuff. You can sleep and take a shower and whatever, but maybe it doesn't have the, fancy alarm clock you wanted. And you're like, oh, the other hotel had a fancy alarm clock, but it doesn't mean you're not, grateful to have shelter and warmth. So, Alexi said I could review a spooky library. Perhaps. So thank you very much for joining today, everybody. I hope this was interesting, helpful. I certainly had a great time. Fabulous library. I will definitely be using it. I'm sorry that I scared you, Michael. And thank you for your work. I really, really appreciate it. I'm definitely going to use this in the future. And I do want to make sure that, speaking of thank yous, I take a second to thank my coffee supporters. I really appreciate y'all. You help make this possible. And a big shout out to Lex Extum, who is my newest coffee supporter. Thank you so much. And if you are interested in joining them, my coffee over there is RCTATMAN. So I appreciate the support. If you are able, and for those of you who are supporting, thank you. Oh, and for those of you who are at the Chit Chat Club level, the link went out yesterday and it's going to be this Friday. So double check coffee if you have not already. All right. So thank you all so much for coming. Thank you for joining today, Michael. It was great to have your expertise while we enjoyed getting to learn about your library. And I will be back on Thursday for our usual coffee club chit chat, and we will be talking about. I think it's shaping up to have a fair number of research papers. And a fair number of like practical professional stuff. So I think that's going to be more the balance. Although looking historically, we're probably going to spend most of the time talking about research papers. That tends to be how it shakes out. So I'll see you there perhaps. And if not, I'll see you around. Thank you so much for joining today, everybody. I hope you stay safe and stay healthy and have a great week. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.